If I were to ask 100 people in the street to name a coffee cocktail, I'd be surprised if anyone said the Revolver. But if those 100 people tried a Revolver, I think a lot of them would have a brand new favourite coffee cocktail. So this drink lands somewhere between a Manhattan and an old fashioned, with coffee thrown into the mix for good measure, which is a really good place to be. And today I'm going to show you a classic recipe for the drink, and also make sure you stick around till the end of the video, because I'm going to show you my favourite riff on the drink, which incorporates passion fruit and vanilla. So let's make some coffee cocktails. Alright, welcome back to the Coffee Cocktail channel everyone. I'm Dan Fellows, and today we're talking about the Revolver. So this drink was created in 2004 by John Santa in San Francisco, and that places it firmly in our kind of modern classic coffee cocktail camp. So this is a fairly recent drink by cocktail standards, and it's a very simple drink. So all we're going to need is 3 ingredients, which are bourbon, coffee liqueur, and orange bitters, and you're going to finish the drink with a flamed orange zest. So this is a really simple drink to make. We're going to be following the Manhattan template, which I used in this video. But we can also adapt this to be more like an old-fashioned if you prefer your drinks to be a little bit more booze-forward. So just like an old-fashioned or a Manhattan, this is going to be a stirred drink because this is a predominantly alcohol-forward drink. If we had citrus in there or any kind of egg white or cream, obviously we'd shake the drink, but we're going to stir down our kind of booze-forward drinks. And we're going to start with 50 ml of Bulleit bourbon, which is the original bourbon from this drink. So Bulleit is the name of the bourbon, and also the inspiration behind the Revolver name. Bulleit, Revolver, all starts to make sense. And this is our kind of core flavour in the drink. So Bulleit bourbon really leans into those rich and spicy notes despite being a bourbon. It does have quite a high rye content, but if you prefer a sweeter bourbon, you could go for something like Buffalo Trace, or you can choose a whiskey that you really love, and that's the most important thing. Next up, we're going to go 25 ml of coffee liqueur, and this replaces our sweet vermouth if we were making a Manhattan. And this really changes the dynamic of the drink. So one thing to consider when you're choosing a coffee liqueur is the sweetness level, and obviously the quality of coffee as well. Choose a good quality coffee liqueur. But in terms of the sweetness, if it's a very sweet coffee liqueur, you might want to add a little bit less of it in order to get a balanced drink. And if it's not a very sweet coffee liqueur, you could also add a little bit of sugar syrup just to balance out the drink to your own taste preferences. And if you're going to do so, I'd recommend using a light muscovado sugar syrup because it's got those really nice toffee notes that lean into the whiskey and also the coffee in the drink. A plain white sugar syrup doesn't really add much to the drink other than sweetness and can be a little bit confectionery. Again, close to our Manhattan template, we're going to go 3 dashes of orange bitters this time rather than aromatic. And this is going to bring a little bit of pithiness, a little bit of zestiness, and a citric bitterness and acidity, which is going to really freshen up the drink. So as you can tell, this is very similar to a Manhattan, but if you want to adapt this to be closer to an old-fashioned and a little bit more booze-forward, you could go 60 ml of bourbon, 15 ml of coffee liqueur, and the same 3 dashes of orange bitters. And that really does change the character of the drink, making it much more whiskey-forward with a little bit less of the coffee character and more of that kind of booziness coming through in the final drink. I like both. Experiment with both and see what you prefer. Going to stir this down with lots of ice to chill the drink, mix it together and add some dilution. Then we'll strain the drink into a frozen glass. Going to cut an orange coin, which is going to flame over the drink. Then all you want to do is just lightly flame your orange coin. And then when you're ready, give it a squeeze. And just rim the glass for that really nice orange aroma. You can just garnish with the orange coin. And there we have a classic Revolver. Cheers. So on the nose, you've got those really kind of rich orange notes, the whiskey, the coffee. Got a nice balance of sweetness in there. You could definitely go a little bit of sugar if you wanted to, because this is quite a dry coffee liqueur. But if you're using a sweeter coffee liqueur, I definitely don't think you should. It's really well balanced, very complex for 3 ingredients, and you get a nice balance of acidity and bitterness from the orange. You do get plenty of that kind of rich leatheriness coming from this bourbon, but if you wanted even more of that, you could change that ratio to 60 and 15, just like we spoke about earlier. So that's the Revolver, and now we should level this up with my personal favorite riff on this, which includes passion fruit and vanilla. So for this part of the video, I wanted to see how far we could take the Revolver, incorporating some really delicious ingredients, some homemade ingredients, to create a brand new drink, which also maintains that true DNA of the original drink. And I think we've achieved that really well. So again, we're going to be building this in our stirring glass, starting with 50 ml, this time of Buffalo Trace. So because we're leaning into passion fruit and vanilla flavors, I wanted to get those kind of passion fruit, toffee, caramel, butterscotch flavors from Buffalo Trace, whereas if you use the Bulleit, it was a little bit more kind of rich and spicy. So Buffalo Trace works perfectly for this. So for our coffee element, I'm going to add 20 ml of coffee saccharum liqueur, And essentially what this is a zero waste coffee liqueur made using leftover espresso pucks, which I've then combined with light muscovado sugar, left to steep overnight to get that really nice kind of oily, rich extracted syrup. I've then added filter coffee of the same coffee to this and finished it with aged white rum. So for this, I've used Don Pancho from Cast Iron Coffee Roasters because it has those really nice passion fruit flavors, which tie in with the other ingredients, as well as a bit of berry in there for that kind of freshness and just to elevate the whole drink. So coffee saccharum liqueur is a really versatile ingredient, and it just means you can choose a perfectly suited coffee when you're making your cocktails. So this is a perfect coffee which I have my hands on, but anything with those really nice tropical characteristics should work really well. We're going to stay true to the original Revolver and go with 3 dashes of our orange bitters once again. These are from Scrappy's Bitters in Seattle, bringing that nice pithy citrus. And then we're going to start adding our kind of flavor flourishes to the drink. So I'm going with the passion fruit liqueur, which is the slow version of our passion fruit liqueur, which we made a few weeks ago. And if you haven't seen the video, I'll link it at the end on how to make this. And I'm going for the slower version because it's much more clear, as you can see. And this has a really nice kind of clean, bright, vibrant passion fruit flavors. If you went with the slow one, that'd be totally fine. You just wouldn't get such a clear drink at the end of it. But both bring really nice passion fruit characteristics, so whichever works better for you. We're gonna go 20 mils of our passion fruit liqueur. You could totally just leave the drink there, stir it down and serve it for a really delicious drink. But because these are quite big flavors, which are a bit all over the place, what I wanted to do is kind of bridge them together and use some seasonings. So if you haven't seen my video on seasoning drinks, which I'll put just here, essentially what we're doing here is bridging and balancing our drinks in order to make all those big flavors kind of harmonize and link together. I'm going with 0.9 grams of saline solution, made with 1 part salt to 5 parts water. And then finally, 0.5 grams of good quality vanilla extract. So for anyone who's ever had a porn star martini, you'll know that vanilla and passion fruit work really well together. But vanilla also works with coffee. It's one of the kind of inherent characteristics of the Buffalo Trace. So all we're doing here is pulling those big flavors, giving them common ground, which is vanilla, so that they all kind of bind together and harmonize really nicely. Again, we're going to stir this down to mix, dilute and chill the drink. Going to strain into our frozen coupe glass. And then for this, we've got a really cool garnish, which kind of ties together the passion fruit notes in the drink, but also the classic flamed orange zest in a Revolver. So here I've got half a passion fruit shell. We also want to grab our orange and prep our orange coin, because we're going to need this in a second. And you do have to move quite quickly. So now these are both ready, we're going to take a little bit of overproof rum, pour this into our passion fruit. Then we're going to float this in the drink very carefully, making sure you use a nice clean passion fruit. Set our half passion fruit on fire. I think we should dim the lights. And then we're going to express our orange over our flaming passion fruit. And there we have the Passion Fruit Revolver. Or maybe I should have called it the Flaming Passion Fruit Revolver. So on the nose, that kind of charred orange, passion fruit obviously, a little bit of the overproof rum as well. It's so tasty. Passion fruit's all there. Get the kind of vanilla notes coming through from the bourbon. Plenty of coffee. Because the passion fruit liqueur is pre-balanced, we've got a little bit of citrus in there, which is really nice and refreshing. Got lots of kind of rich vanilla in there as well. That is very tasty. So if you enjoyed this and you want to make more drinks in the style of the kind of old-fashioned in Manhattan, I'll put my coffee old-fashioned playlist, which I'll do just here. And if you want to learn how to make this passion fruit liqueur, as well as lots more drinks using passion fruit liqueur, I'll put a nice playlist that you can watch just here. So I hope you enjoy the next videos. If you've enjoyed this, make sure you subscribe to the channel, which you can do by clicking here. And I'll see you soon. Thank you for watching. Cheers.